Here's to you, dear listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance, where you'll find your favorite conversations around Metal Gear and Kojima-related content delivered to you to tactical podcast action. I'm your host, Warren Minix, and with me, as always, twins at birth, Mr. Chris Hampton. How we doing, bud?
Oh, actually, he's Mr. Mute Boy.
Hey. How's it going?
Hi, Chris.
Hey, just call me Francis the Mute.
I like it.
Yes. In the comatorium. There's my deep Mars Volta reference for the day.
I was just going to say a Mars Volta album.
Yeah.
And of course, the other half of this twin duo, Tori Cortez. What's up?
You know, I'm sensing something about your future. I think you are in grave peril of getting dunked on in this episode. And that's my prophecy.
Oh no. I guess we're going to have to get started. I don't know what else to say. So this is episode 4 of our Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops edition for Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance. Today is a character-focused episode. And like we had discussed, if you had listened way back.
If you had taken the time to listen, God.
When we drop sort of like what we're going to do for this season, we tried to do, break it down. There was a lot more meaty characters in some of the console releases. So with this being a PSP release, we're going to do a good guys episode and a bad guys episode. This particular episode will be the good guys. Unfortunately, probably not going to be that long of an episode. You guys will obviously notice that when you look at the runtime of this ep. However, there is some interesting good guys in this game, as well as some new introductions of characters that will run lengthwise in the series that we'll see a lot. I will say when we get to the bad guys episode is where we'll probably have most of the meat for some of the character stuff, because Gene and Cunningham and Null, Python, these guys have some pretty cool shit, especially Elisa and Ursula as well. But we're talking good guys today. And before we get started, Chris, anything you want to just get off your chest or anything before we get started? You got some good character stuff you can't wait to drop?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if you get a job out there and you're hiring, your boy
Chris
just got laid off this week, so
Chris needs a helping hand, friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris was on assignment, and he is back, obviously, as you have just heard his smooth voice. But yeah, so there you go. If your boy needs a job, let's put it that way.
Yeah, your boy needs a job. So my absence from the last episode was, I got laid off, but I'm back.
There he is.
Yeah, if you're looking for a good client services manager in the digital media space, hit me up. Otherwise, I got some analysis on these fine characters. These very, very fine characters indeed.
Indeed. I like it. Tori, anything you want to add before I sort of shill some Patreon?
Oh, I don't think so. Yeah, usually yeah, I was hanging on until the end to see if you were going to mention Patreon, because that's what I was going to jump all over. But yeah,
sure.
No, I don't think.
Oh yeah, we're gonna show, baby.
Oh yeah, that's what we do.
Going to town. So yeah, guys. So Patreon.com/Metal Gear Mondays. What I will say is obviously, I think you guys have noticed by now, but we are incredibly appreciative and thankful of our patrons. And we are continuing to find new ways to sort of thank you guys and engage more and do things like that. And a big part of that, which we started with the Revengeance, is we do a random patron plug at the beginning of every mainline episode. So Tori, I know you got your whole system back there. Who is our patron for this particular episode?
Hold on. Let me pull down this lever and wind up this little and click these beep 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 boop, boop, beep, beep, beep. Yeah, okay. It's it's giving me a loading error.
Is it printing a dot matrix form for you?
Yeah, this is so crazy. This has never done this before. Oh, oh, nope, there's the email option. Okay, let me just
make sure you have your security settings
Yeah.
properly set too if they're going to send you.
Oh God, you know what?
Would be third party.
I have multi-factor authentication set up. Hold on, guys. It's just gonna be another minute. Okay, and I'm in. All right.
I'm starting to believe her.
Okay, the patron of the week, after a long-awaited bumbling around by yours truly, is none other than Greg Purcell. Greg!
What's up, Greg? Hey, Greg Purcell.
Thanks for your money, Greg. If you are in the Discord regularly, you got to sound off because I'm not sure if we have had any Discord thus far.
Yeah, I feel like I don't think I've talked to a Greg. Like someone that told me their name was Greg.
Yeah.
I think correctly.
If you're not in the Discord, I highly recommend you hop in there. If you are, say what up, and either that or tell me we've had many conversations together and make me feel like an ass, whichever.
Yeah.
Whichever you feel
I
like.
told you my name was Greg like 8 times.
That
would suck.
Greg has been with us since June of last year, and we do appreciate you sticking with us through some rough times. Let's be honest. Last year was something that we don't need to revisit for much longer. So thank you, Greg, for being here with us still.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. You're the man. All right, y'all. So I tried to be fair when it came to who we could talk about when it comes to the good guys. And I figured we could play the hits early and then maybe introduce sort of the newbies later. So we don't have to go into it too wild because we did sort of mention this in the Metal Gear Solid 3 character focus episodes we did. So we can start with Naked Snake, which is the protagonist, our main character, Big Boss. And like I said, it's tough to say because Naked Snake's the one you want to say the most about, but you also may have nothing to say because the story is his, like the game is his story.
Sure.
I think the main thing that we sort of could bring up with this that we could talk about is that between Metal Gear Solid 3 and Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops, there's, a pretty hefty gap there. It's 6 years, but we only really learned that as soon as Metal Gear Solid 3 ended, Snake walked away from Fox. He was labeled Big Boss, but he essentially said, I'm done. And obviously justified with everything that went on. He certainly didn't agree with everything that happened to him. He was very concerned, everything that happened with the boss. Like, not that he felt betrayed, but it was just like, what the fuck was I doing? That he basically walked away from Fox and sort of did his own thing there.
I would, if I could, just for a second, I would argue that he probably does feel betrayed, and not only by the agency that sent him out there, but even by someone whose motivations for her actions are not entirely known at this point.
Sure. It's a good point. And I do like that as this game goes on, which we didn't have much story. So we had a lot of stuff go on early in the game, and the last couple episodes that you're going to hear that are sort of boss heavy or gameplay heavy. There wasn't much plot with the story. There's a lot of character introductions, things like that. The one big thing that we do know is that Big Boss is essentially charged with treason because of everything that's going on in San Geronimo, because they are Fox unit or an adjacent of Fox unit, previous Fox unit, things like that. That is charged with treason by the Department of Defense. So he is legitimately motivated to sort of not only dissolve this coup or whatever it is going on in this, but he has to, kill off those that sort of get in his way and clear his name, which I think is a pretty pretty good way to get him back sort of from essentially walking away from everything. And I do think it does help because Chris is sort of, I'll say famously, at least on this podcast, the sort of the question of what the fuck is the will of the boss? And I do think that part of his story as he progresses is he does slowly sort of work his way towards what he truly feels is the quote unquote will of the boss. So I do like that. And again, we can talk about it a little bit. I feel bad because some of these character focused stuff, you want to talk about the game. And I don't want to necessarily spoil it if people are playing, but you can always like hop back and forth. You don't have to listen to the character episodes in order, I guess, as far as like the episode drops. But yeah, so Chris, you agree with me on my thoughts with that when it comes to the quote unquote will of the boss? Because that's the vibe I get from this.
Yeah, I think so. This is sort of assessing out of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so this is like, I think the whole San Geronimo incident is a first test of what Naked Snake has taken away from Metal Gear Solid 3. You know, he's just had this like really traumatic thing happen to him vis-a-vis his like mentor in a way. And it's given him a lot to think about. We left Snake off and he was like giving the bird to LBJ and walking out of the White House and going and doing the old 2-finger salute at the grave. Right. But now when we find him again, he's in this jail cell in a place we've never heard. And I don't know. It seems like he's kind of hit rock bottom. This is like the episode where like the main character hits rock bottom, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think so. Interesting fact, something to kind of bring over from the gameplay episode that we just recorded is that if you defeat the bosses in a non-lethal way, you end up recruiting them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way of like boss, like to his fellow soldier now over the course of this game is learning to reach out to them and like bring them up. And I think that's how he's acting on the will of the boss from his perspective.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
I like that too.
And you
That's
know
a
what
pretty good
else
move.
I loved in terms of this topic right here is that at the beginning of this game, Sigint has to lay it out to him. Aren't you the expert in on-site procurement? Why can you not procure yourself some more soldiers? Duh. Like it's just that easy to find a soldier and be like, okay, let's go with me.
Yeah, well, especially like I said, he's choosing to sort of like forget that he's earned what he does have, whether he feels it maybe through, you know, false means in a sense, but like he truly did defeat the boss.
Mm-hmm.
He truly is a Russian hero in a sense that they adore him for getting rid of Volgin and all of that. Like that whole history is there. So he has to, like, it is one of those things. It's almost like Chris kind of said rock bottom in a sense, but it is like that build up piece. Like, dude, you're fucking big boss.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you understand like who you are? And I do think like that intro is really cool. And again, it's part of why I like that intro and I used it in the teaser was I like when you can tell he's sort of stammering in a sense, or he's like when he talks about Cunningham and he's like, is this an official Fox mission? Like, I liked how he was just like, he fucking like tried to throw it all. Like he wanted to forget anything he's ever done. Like when it came to this. So that was pretty cool. Like he almost doesn't believe Fox still exists in a sense. You know what I mean? Like where's Zero? Like he just fucking catch me up here, which I think that's pretty good. And I like the journey that Snake sort of goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about it when we get to Gene. But again, I don't want to say spoilers because I hope you guys have played this game by the time you're listening to these episodes, but it's really funny that Gene is trying to do Army Heaven. You know what I mean? So Big Boss definitely takes a page out of Gene's book to build towards Outer Heaven, which sure, it's a little on the nose, but for Kojima, like a Metal Gear game, that's really not that on the nose.
Well, not only
comparison.
that,
it could be a lot worse, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I had similar thoughts like, oh, how clever or how original. But when you think about it in terms of a chronological context, it's kind of his, you know, he took the principles he liked from it, and I think the outer heaven refers to the fact that he wants no part of this army heaven that Gene has concocted. Right. So at least that's how I read it. Maybe that in and of itself is on the nose, but I just remember playing the game and reading that or I guess hearing, because that was a cutscene.
That was a cutscene, yeah, the Army Heaven one, and they like give it a beat.
Yeah.
My own Army Heaven.
Right.
It's like, oh god, my whole body rolled.
Yeah. I was just gonna say I don't know if my eyes have ever rolled harder in this series.
Sure, at least for our stuff, for our chronological this far now, it's certainly my biggest hit. But again, I agree with it. Like, I like the concept of, okay, we need a place for, like, obviously everybody has a mission, and this was like the perfect, like, these are people that are forgotten. It's a base that quote unquote doesn't exist anymore. Like, it's left for dead, and there are people that have fucking lives that can't leave because they think they're on assignment that doesn't exist anymore. So they're the perfect recruits for someone to do something with or give them purpose or a life. So I get it. The motivations are there. Now Gene uses it to fucking, you know, get back at people that wronged him and all this other shit, because Gene's story gets a little twisty-turny towards the end there. But again, his concept is like, you know, these people are people. They just also are really good with, you know, standing for whatever they're paid to stand for. So like, I get that. So I do, like, by the time we get through the end of the story, it is a nice sort of character arc to, even if it's only like a half of the arc that we get to when we get to 5, it does feel like a pretty good, like, stepping stone for them to take Peace Walker and then to take Ground Zeroes. Like, it actually feels like it was written ahead of time. Like, they were really good foundational pieces in this game, which again is part of why at least it's fun to talk about some of these characters, because the story and the character growth is easily the best part of this game.
Absolutely.
You know, even if it is, you know, sort of may not have the pull of, you know, killing boss at the end of 3, but like, it still felt organic. It didn't feel like cheap, just to like, it didn't feel like they were just like, all right, we got to get him here, and he's just, as long as he fucking says outer heaven by the end of this, I'm happy. You know, it didn't feel like that. It felt natural. You know, it felt right in as far as the gameplay is there. Which I can't really say for the Fox unit people, and we can move to that if you want, if there's nothing else you guys want to throw in real quick about Snake. But I will be moving to the Fox unit next, if that's okay with you. You guys have any last thoughts on Snake before we slide over?
I mean, I think it's interesting to see Snake grow in sort of a dynamic way. And this is the transition of Snake becoming the big boss.
Right.
That we know.
Like, actually, not just by title, correct?
Right. Like, inside, he experiences a change over the course of this game. And that's really nice. And I think it's done super well. So kudos to Ryan and the team for writing a really good narrative for Snake in this game.
Yeah, it is satisfying. And I was going to bring that up. The writing on this is, like you were saying, Warren, it's really powerful. And I'm glad this concept of soldiers being taken for granted and treated as tools rather than humans is a topic that should be visited more. It's just another one of those things that you want to thank Kojima directly, because Kojima seems to point out all those things that maybe are on the peripheries of most people's existence or reality, I suppose.
Sure.
And I think that's opening my mind up to, you know, our realities and how I'm seeing that played out IRL, so to speak. I just wanted to give major kudos and props to the whole team for that too, because I thought it was done so organically, and the transition of Jonathan specifically, I know we're going to get to him pretty soon, but I just want to say his progression from enemy soldier to a soldier who's fighting for himself is just...
Yeah, talk about, like, what a great character with just a mask on the whole time.
Oh, exactly.
Like, you have no fucking idea about this guy. Like, it's really cool. I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's slide to the Fox unit. And I think what I'm going to do, just because as far as meat on the bones here, why don't let's do like paramedic and SIGINT first, just because I don't know if they actually they're not meant to grow. They're sort of just to like establish that Fox also does good shit still.
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically saying like, hey, there's the Fox guys you've met, because you meet Cunningham right away. And he was a CIA interrogation that says he's here on an official Fox mission, that kind of stuff. But we're still learning that, like, whoa. Like, paramedic's still paramedic, at least the one that, made us feel comfortable and would take care of us in Metal Gear Solid 3. And SIGINT's still the guy that's going to take care of you, right? Like, he's going to let you know about on-site procurement. He's going to be able to help you with other things if you need it. If you need to call him. I got to say, there isn't as much, we got into a lot of Easter eggy stuff with them. There's not a lot of dialogue that's like super compelling with them, which is fine. This game doesn't need that for it to be good or bad. I would just say that I appreciated their sort of involvement to, again, lend a helping hand to Snake. When it comes to SIGINT, though, they now start to drop ARPA, which we talked about with SIGINT, for DARPA to become a thing. This is where we sort of get the first, at least chronologically, we hear about ARPA when it comes to SIGINT. He is actually part of it at that point by 1970. So we actually hear about that, which is pretty interesting. I would say outside of paramedic being part of ARPA as well, if I'm not mistaken, because she's in ties with SIGINT. I think that's all I got, though. I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to add to it? We didn't get any fun cutscenes with them. We don't get any real personality. It's just all text. So all I hear is their voices from 3 when I read it, if that makes sense to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you got, Tori? What do you think? Am I off the wrong move here?
Well, I can't rightly say. I guess I would have to start with a question. Did you guys call them after making initial contact?
A couple times just to see, and it just felt like, we're here to tell you the mission, bro. Did you do the mission yet?
Yeah.
You want me to tell you the parameters of that mission? It didn't really feel like there was. And I could be wrong, but in my research, I tried to find extra stuff outside of literally explaining parts of the game to you, which is very helpful. But as far as character stuff, I didn't really get much. And again, it's all reading too, no voice.
Right. Well, that's good to know, because I never once considered calling them beyond the mission of finding, I guess, reaching them through the comm space early on.
Right. Yeah.
There's really not much. Yeah. There's really not much in the way of conversations that you have with them. It's almost more of like a cameo, is how it feels.
Right.
Like, these characters are included as a reference for continuity, but the real meat of the story doesn't involve them.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to talk to paramedic when it comes to initial contact and the malaria, quote unquote, malaria sort of meds. And then I think when you use the C4 or something like that, I think you have to talk to SIGINT. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to recruiting soldiers, I think he as Tori put it, that whole, aren't you like the guy that procures shit every game? Make soldiers of procurement too, dude. Get your shit together. What the fuck are we talking about?
Snake, here? Try to remember the principles of on-site procurement.
Yeah.
Snatch us some boys, Snake.
I did want to drop a little Eva, even though she is only in a flashback from this game. If my notes remind me correctly. They basically sort of drop a thing when Cunningham questions him about Snake Eater. You get a little whew, Eva's there. We know a little bit. We did sort of talk about past Metal Gear Solid 3 when we did the character focused episode on her. She had way more to talk about. Obviously, in Metal Gear Solid 3, she's not a character in this game. They're simply that, we know she exists and we know that she has story ramifications later. When it comes to, you can, I believe you can find a graphic novel of her and you can get a recruitment debriefing about her, and you get 2 images of her as a magazine item, their magazine pages. And I believe you can actually procure her as a hidden character in the game.
Ooh.
There's a lot of hidden stuff, which maybe when we do the wrap up, maybe we'll talk about that some of that stuff, because there is a lot of that, which is sort of rewarding in its own way, but it is a little tough. Like when it's done and I'm taking the notes and I want to move on, like I'm getting that itch to like, stay ahead of it or like be refreshed. I didn't want to go like through a third or fourth time. Some of these I have to do certain things. Like you can get paramedic on your team. I think you have to know like a certain like codec code to call or a certain radio signal to call or a password to put in. And it literally just says, okay, cool. And then paramedic's in your party and you can grab her pretty early in the game too. I learned it a little late, to have it benefit me during my gameplays. But as far as Eva, I mean, hopefully I surprised you guys with a little, she could be a character in the game, but
well,
how about Eva, guys? You guys got anything about her? It's totally fine if you don't.
I do have a very small something. It's kind of a segue into Roy, though. Christy, did you have anything?
No, I don't really have anything to say about Eva. Glad she's here.
Sort of.
Yeah.
There are hints of her, and one of them comes from Roy Campbell, who just like relentlessly, without even knowing it, is emasculating Snake by asking him questions about his love life. Just saying, "Oh, you got a girl in your life or something like that," and Snake's like, not really. And he's like, "Oh, well, don't feel bad, buddy. I'm sure there's someone out there for you." And Snake's like, "Well, actually, there was somebody, but she disappeared." And Roy just goes on to like he talks himself into a hole, almost just making the situation worse by assuming a legend like Big Boss would have no problem getting a woman. And then here we are with knowledge of what happened in Snake Eater, and it's just kind of a funny allusion to what we know as the player of both games.
True. It's a very good point. Yeah, Roy, I will say before we slide into Roy.
Ew.
I know, kind of gross, but whatever. We're talking about Eva. I gotta say, I do want to just do a quick little Zero check-in. Because I guess we officially know by the end of this game that Zero like conspired with Ocelot to get the rest of the Philosopher's Legacy, which is why Fox obviously knows about it and Cunningham's obsessed with it. But I didn't know what to do because it is like a cameo again with Ocelot. I'm just gonna always treat him like a bad guy. So when we bring up Ocelot, maybe we're just gonna talk about him in the bad guys episode regardless, even though his involvement is with Zero, because they sort of Ocelot is a tool for Zero to manipulate Gene in this whole rebellion and the new Metal Gear. Like this is when it starts getting a little wild, and I'll make sure to address it in really good detail when we get to that story part and when we get to Gene. I'll make sure that I know it perfectly.
I'm doing like mental calculations from that statement. So Ocelot is a tool for Gene to manipulate.
No, for Zero to manipulate Gene. For
Zero to manipulate Gene. Okay.
That's what he wants to do. However, it's, but that puts the CIA director in like a weird position because of the nuclear launch. And Ocelot's usually like the smartest guy in the room for the most part, but it's interesting. Like they talk about the co-conspirator and just, I don't know. It's hard to keep up with, but the reason why I want to Zero is always going to be like tied to every game in any way, shape, or form because he is so closely bound to Naked Snake and Big Boss. And I do like the fact that when they mention him and things like that, like he really doesn't get a lot of chat. It's more of just like, oh yeah, Fox unit. So you're automatically going to think of Zero. But again, what we know about Zero is he's also secretly simultaneously running creating XOF and doing all this other stuff that we're going to bring up in future games that technically retcon all the shit we are talking about now.
Oh, the retcons.
Yeah. And again, maybe it's not a retcon, but I don't know a better word for it. It basically says like all the shit you knew that was happening, here's why it happened or here's how it happened, right? But I gotta say, Zero is usually the one that would tie the most, but I think what makes the Roy Campbell of it that we talked about, we'll segue to him real quick, is because Campbell, I don't really like talk about Campbell that much in my video game history with Big Boss. Campbell to me is like the go-to for Solid Snake, not Naked Snake. Now, Roy Campbell, which we can get into now, he is like the unsung hero of this game. I like to pick on him a lot, but I think his voice acting is done really, really well.
Hell yeah.
And I really appreciate the story bits about him. And again, we were talking about like his banter. It's real. It feels natural. I like that he sort of calls himself out. He was almost going to break out and they switched to Cell, like a lot of that stuff early. But then also we get to a part of the game where Snake is captured and being interrogated. So Campbell sort of takes the lead and saying like, well, we got to get Snake back. So he gets involved with actually, running his own thing. And we know a little bit about him because he says that he was a Green Beret that was part of the CIA that was sent to San Geronimo to figure everything out. He got ambushed by Fox people, which they're supposed to be working together. So he's there. He goes, Fort Bragg, I think is where he's dispatched out of. And the rogue Fox unit essentially kills his whole team, throws him in prison and throws away the key and, does the normal Cunningham thing, bust their genitals up, fuck their legs up, does whatever he has to do to get his info. But I don't know. I really like Campbell in this a lot. And I don't know. I feel like from our other episodes we've recorded, I feel like I'm not alone in this. Chris, how do you like Campbell, at least as an introduction chronologically to Campbell?
Campbell's a badass, man.
Hell yeah.
Right?
I'd kick a beer back and listen to some Creedence with this guy all day long.
Yeah.
He seems like he would listen to that too.
Yeah. He's
big time.
Yeah. Campbell's a cool guy, and I don't know. It's cool to see him and Snake interact. Especially being someone who played a lot of Metal Gear Solid in my younger years and saw Campbell as this older dude.
Yeah.
This is like the young guy, and like it really does a good job of coloring in those references from the first game. I think that the writers were paying attention to those details and tried to make it fit in the headcanon of our memories of Metal Gear Solid. They're like, oh yeah, Roy Campbell, here he is, he's back. And this is like him doing that stuff that he talked about. Like he served under Big Boss, here he is serving under Big Boss.
And the interesting thing about this that just popped into my mind is what I think is interesting about their relationship is that they really seem to be equals working together. They both have something to bring to the table. As we see at the very beginning of this game, Roy Campbell is a badass. He fights his way through malaria and helps Snake to the best of his ability. And just like you guys are saying, to see him as a young lad and fostering this kind of awe-inspired mentee relationship with Big Boss, even though he is actively helping him carry out his missions, is just a fun dynamic, I think, for the player to see after getting to know older Roy Campbell, as Chris said.
Yeah. And for all the nerds that are hopefully listening to this wanting some legit facts. So Campbell was a Marine. He was in the 5th Marine Regiment. We do know that he is the father of Meryl Silverberg, that we will meet later. So a fun tidbit that I, in my research. So in the Marines, Campbell was a truck driver, and he and his younger brother fell in love with the same woman.
Oh.
He stepped aside for his brother's sake and joined the Green Berets as a convenient excuse.
Oh, dude. Oh, Roy.
Which is, okay, guy's got a heart, right? That's pretty cool.
So,
and again, I like to hear that he and Snake were both Green Berets, too.
That brings into context his needing to pry into Snake's love life. That's interesting.
A little bit.
It's an interesting bit of information to have.
Exactly. I like it, though. But yeah, so I'm you're right, though. This is like a pretty, like a nice, I think this is a pretty nice introduction to someone like Campbell, who actually is like a pretty heavy in some of the future games as far as chronology is concerned. I like it. I like that they set him up as essentially, in an extent, like an equal to Snake. I totally agree with you guys. I think that's great. And I love that he was running his own ops. He was a go-to guy for something along the lines of, go figure out a former nuclear, missile base when the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, so he obviously had some pull, with his accreditations and everything. So I really did enjoy that. And he holds his own for the entirety of the game.
Yeah, he
does. I think it totally justifies why he is fucking Colonel Campbell later. Like, I totally agree with it. It's the fucking best.
Can we just talk about how great the voice acting was for him, though? Like,
it's really good.
For a younger Roy Campbell, it's spot on.
That seems to be common. When we even talked about Hader doing his own rendition of this different character, but supposed to be a clone, so the same character. Like, I really do appreciate the voice acting. Is, like I said, the cutscenes in the story of this game are pretty solid, well-rounded, and I can't wait to sort of talk about some of the other characters that, again, like Elisa. With what we know about her and Ursula, I'm going to treat them as a bad guy just because she technically is in cahoots with Jean, even if she isn't.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay, that's fair. I actually did put in the notes here. Are we not going to talk about Elisa? But okay, that makes sense.
I want to, but why she's at San Geronimo is because of Jean. So I'm going to treat that, and we'll tie that to Ursula later.
That's fair.
I didn't know how to do that. But again, it makes for a compelling character, the fact that we even have to have that conversation about, is she a good guy or a bad guy?
Show.
More bits to that. Now, I think those are like the biggest heavies that maybe have some tie-in to other games. Now we sort of hit like these tertiary characters that may or may not matter outside in the grand scheme of the story. And I even dropped like a couple other names that aren't, they're not really big deals outside of our favorite boy, of course, is Jonathan. He would definitely be the most like character rich when it comes to other people that sort of only affect the story of this game, from a good guy standpoint, let's say. So my big issue is I think I'm going to actually let Tori do a little bit of chat about Jonathan at first, if that's okay with you, Tori.
Sure.
Just because you definitely spoke to me about you really enjoyed Jonathan's arc and a little bit about him. So I'd rather let you have a chance to do a little chit chat about him.
Sure.
I'll chime in.
Sure. I don't know. Jonathan has a lot of heart, I think. And it makes sense that they would start him out as your first soldier recruit, because our goal at that point was to find a soldier who might have been dissatisfied under his commander at the time. And what we got in the cutscene immediately after capturing him was the opposite of that. He seemed loyal to Jean until the end. that is until Big Boss proved that he was indeed Big Boss, and that, you know, his credentials sort of speak for themselves. And after that point, Jonathan can only, you know, his only option at that point is to take Big Boss's word that Gene is not up to the things that he says he is. And that makes me appreciate Jonathan on a lot of levels, because, you know, he was ready to, it seemed like via the voice acting, maybe that's a great credit to the voice acting in general, but he seemed like he was ready to die on the Gene Hill. And just as convincingly, once he had decided, okay, maybe Big Boss definitely knows what he's talking about and would be a better person to follow, he has just as much loyalty to Big Boss, if not more. I mean, this is, like you said at the beginning of this episode, Jonathan is the right-hand guy. He's there for you when you need him. He is, I will say this about my experience with Jonathan. I loved playing as him, but when things started getting dicey towards the end of the game, I really wanted to reserve him because I wanted to protect him.
Yeah.
And you know, if you lose a soldier in battle, that's it.
Yeah.
And that's, well, okay. I'm not gonna get into later things in the game, but let's just say it was my number one mission to protect this boy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
a good thing, though.
I had a similar reaction, but so Jonathan fell in battle near the end of the game, and I had like a pretty emotional moment about it. I was like sad.
Dude, same. Very, very, very hard same.
It was a Red Dead Redemption moment.
Oh.
If you played Red Dead Redemption 2, the horse thing. Oh, spoilers.
It's always the horse thing, isn't it?
But very similar, just gut wrenching. I don't know. I felt like I lost a friend.
Yeah, I get that. It was, the impact that Jonathan had on me was surprising, because that's exactly right, Chris. He's there with you the whole time. He's, you know, he appears in some cutscenes. I really appreciated this about the game, actually. They stuck to the continuity of, no, you're out there with Team Alpha. So in the cutscenes, when you're sneaking into a place where it shows Snake overhearing some bit of information, Jonathan is nearly always there with him. And that I think helped lend this feeling of camaraderie for Jonathan to me, because he's just like, you see he's there with Snake, and he's, I think, the one who expresses the most concern when Snake ends up imprisoned, I suppose would be the best word for it. He and Roy specifically, but I don't know. Jonathan's just the best. He's like brother status.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did like as well. He was sort of the like exposition machine at that point when we were trying to figure out why they were there, like why he does agree with Gene to an extent, because Gene has a means of being very convincing. And again, the concept of, you guys are forgotten by your country, you're left for dead, essentially. Nobody cares who or where you are. And, you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I liked his little concept of like, I am part of a group of people that want to just find a place to call home.
Exactly.
Which was pretty cool. And I was like, damn, who the fuck is Jonathan? You know what I mean? Like, when I'm just like, this guy's got like some real fucking, like, some real meaty shit. Like, he's really going to make some choices. And he does. He's absolutely important. And yeah, like, just to hit home, I got the feeling, I remember telling myself, so when you hear him sort of say, like, he's your first recruit, right? Like, he's your Tamagotchi, you get your first, like, your first little baby, and you actually are like, yo, this guy's pretty dope. You do start to care about Jonathan. Jonathan's always there for you. You play as him to rescue fucking Snake. Like, that's the whole point of it. For him to, and then I remember telling myself out loud, like, one of the first times I played this, I'm like, how come we don't hear about Jonathan and some of the other, fuck. Like, I kind of knew, I was like, oh, when's it going to happen, right? And when the choice they make, like, I guess it's at the assembly plant, I think is what it is. And it's pretty cool, man, that the reason why we even get Solid Snake, technically, the reason why we get, Ground Zeroes and all this stuff is because of fucking Jonathan.
Ugh.
Because Snake would have died if Jonathan wasn't there for him.
Oh, man.
And it's pretty cool. It's one thing to say like he's, protecting a friend, a fellow soldier, a commander, a executive officer, whatever you want to call it. But it's another to be like, fuck, man, like this game made a choice that like this guy that you don't know shit about outside of what he tells you. It could all be a fucking lie. We don't know. I mean, I trust him. But Big Boss wouldn't even be in future games if Jonathan weren't there. And I was like, that's all right. Pretty cool. Pretty good idea, game.
That's
like,
big.
I'm with you. And then when I realized I was ready to like kind of say like this fucking guy, but then I'm like literally the only person I cared about as much as Campbell and Snake was fucking Jonathan.
Yeah.
So it's like the game kind of won. Like it did it anyway. So I was like, good on you.
Well,
good
and
on you, Portable Ops.
I think there's good reason for that. And we touched on this earlier. Snake is looking for, at this point, I believe, Snake is looking for any way possible to carry out what he thinks is the will of the boss. And here comes Jonathan with a backstory that is very similar to Snake's own. He's been betrayed by the people who he thought were having his back. I think Jonathan in some ways is just as pivotal as the boss because, like you said, Warren, without him physically saving his life, yes, there would be no Big Boss to carry out further actions in the series. But without the idea of Jonathan, who knows how far into this mission in Portable Ops Snake would have made it without a person like Jonathan.
Agreed. And he's a good template for like who deserves to be in outer heaven whenever it becomes a thing, in my opinion. So I totally agree. Now, outside of Jonathan, we do have, like I said, I tried to do some hunting. We could argue that Skoronsky is a good guy since he's a Russian. But
Well,
I think at the end of the day, he's, sort of right down the middle of like, he's the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of a guy.
mm-hmm.
So I can't really do that. And then we do have, I think this is more from the non-canonical stuff, but just in case some people would be like, how come we didn't bring them up? We could talk about Taliko and Venus. If you guys know about these characters, I don't know if they're only in Portable Ops Plus or not, but Taliko is like a character you can get, or they mention him in Acid or things like that, but they are around and can be recruited in Portable Ops. So there's nothing like too super crazy about it. It's just one is a member of the hostage rescue team from the FBI. So obviously there's just sort of world building saying that there's other stuff going around. And Taliko in itself, I guess it's a merger of the names. So the American father, Japanese mother, her name was supposed to be Taruko, meant shining child, excuse me. But a typo rendered it Taliko. So fun little piece there. And then I think Venus, if I'm not mistaken, the reason why I put this one down is this one's more of a fan favorite. This is like a big Acid character, or at least someone that drives a little bit of the plot, even though it's Acid we're talking about. So I say plot in quotes there. But they mentioned the Saint Logic incident. She is a Model 3 soldier, and she became a secret FBI private assassin. But this is another character that you can get in Portable Ops. So they're also dropping these other characters later. And what's, at least as far as when people talk about her, I think the reason why she's like a fan favorite, she's only in Plus, but all of her stats are A.
Oh shit!
So she's good at she's the best at everything all the time.
Dang.
And she has she has awesome. Her stamina is like twice as high as any other characters. She doesn't have a lot of life, but she doesn't need it because she can outrun anything, and she's like the best at everything. Let's just put it that way. So I know that she's got her own. I mean, she's also, think of what a character named Venus, who's like this robotic soldier. Think of what that character would probably look like in your head, since it's in a Kojima game. And that's what Venus looks like. So just to throw it out there, even though she's part of Portable Ops Plus, which is confirmed not canon. So like any added bits we get in Portable Ops Plus does not count. Like it always has the little flag of like, this doesn't count. Acid, this, they are not to drive new details, quote unquote.
So can we talk about that for a minute since we've got a little time to fill?
Yeah.
So we've teased at this since the first Ryan interview that we recorded. There are reports, I guess, or opinions that Portable Ops in and of itself is not even Portable Ops Plus, but Portable Ops is not canon. And can you guys conjecture at why that is? Because I'm sold on the fact that it is canon. It's like setting up some very real things that come down the line.
So
I think, go ahead, Chris. Yeah, by all means.
Well, my only understanding of it is that it's just not a Hideo Kojima game.
Oh, so no Hideo means no video game.
Yeah, and I guess that would also include like Metal Gear Survive under that definition. I don't know. I might be off on that because I'm not sure where Survive falls under.
Well, Survive also takes place in another fucking dimension. If you watch the opening 10 minutes of that game, it's so fucking dumb. Sorry. You know what? If Fingers ends up listening to this, he said he liked Survive. I'm not saying you're wrong, dude. But I don't know. It's just, as a Metal Gear fan, it was tough to enjoy that game.
If I recall correctly, he said something along the lines of, "It's valid as a game, and it was fine, yeah, but it's not like the other Metal Gear Solid games."
Right.
So Konami is also owner in part of this IP, is it not?
Yeah. Oh no. Anything Metal Gear is going to have Konami attached to it.
So by that standard,
wait, Konami.
Konami made Portable Ops, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Konami is going to be attached to everything, even if Hideo is not.
Okay. So by that standard, by that one definition, I'm sure of many that designates anything canon. By that definition alone, it's still technically canon, right?
Yes, and it was made by Kojima Productions. It just wasn't directed by Hideo Kojima. So without calling anybody out, but like the fanboys, the Hideo fanboys, my understanding.
We have your names and addresses.
What I will say is that Kojima has sort of said like, hey, I didn't make this game. So if I make a decision in a future game, and it doesn't follow canon of this game, it's not. I'm not going to let what they did in this mess with my vision of what I wanted to do in future games. However, this game's story is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't make it, so I can't speak to its canonicity, but I like what they did in that game when it comes to story.
Mm-hmm.
Is my understanding about how Kojima discussed it. So if someone were to look at something that happened in Metal Gear Solid 5, a game that came out after this, and say, but that doesn't work with what they said in Portable Ops, Hideo will be like, well, then that game's not canon. Like that was how he talked about it, which is why it always has an asterisk. And we might, now that we're actually sort of tackling these, and I get the feeling, I guess, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, I'm really worried about how long our season's going to be on Metal Gear Solid 5. But I know that that's like the biggest game that came out after this. And I think if we dig enough, we probably will find a few things that are going to basically disagree with the canon of Portable Ops. And we're told by the creator, like, then ignore it.
But you know what?
5, you know what I mean?
There are several things within Guns of the Patriots that disagree with Sons of Liberty. So
agreed.
Isn't it also true that, as great as Kojima is and as great as the writing is and lots of installments of the series, I won't say all of them, maybe.
Right.
But isn't it also true that Kojima and team have made concessions here and there just, for, if not for making a more seemingly convoluted story, just making that iteration of the series the best it can be? Because I feel like that's been Kojima's habit, I suppose, or practice with the series. Whatever makes the most interesting game, maybe, is what he feels like doing. And if it doesn't exactly line up story-wise, no big deal, because most people don't understand the story anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I also get nervous too. So you brought up like, so Sons of Liberty. Sons of Liberty is tough to sometimes, like, and I am in no way defending Kojima. Sorry, bud. Kojima, my best friend. But a lot of times when it comes to like Guns of the Patriots, because it's the only game, I guess, not the only game, I guess we have Revengeance, but like a story heavy game that came out after Sons of Liberty, which is like one of the later installments chronologically wise. I always feel like a lot of times a lot of people write that off, because the whole point of Metal Gear Solid 2 is like how much of it was real, how much of it was in Raiden's, the whole meme of it, the whole, like, you're actually just a gamer, you're just, you're taking virtual missions and all this stuff. So sometimes I feel like people may hear a thing that happened in that game and be like, yeah, well, do you have a reliable narrator? Because it's fucking Raiden we're talking about here.
Right.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's
like a fucking brain fuck in that game.
That's where the whole misdirection lies, right? Because by the end of the game, you're convinced that it was a simulation, and Raiden is questioning reality, because that's essentially what they're telling you has happened. And
right, and that's the difference. Is, did they tell us that's what happened, or is that what happened?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, you can take that at face value, or you can choose to question that. But did Guns of the Patriots provide a good enough fork in the path to really reliably say that's what was really going on while we were playing as Raiden? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's such a jarring change, and they don't, in my mind, they didn't provide a whole lot of, well, here's why we chose to go down this path. Here's what was actually, there's been so much retconning throughout the series. Why could they not have done that better from Sons of the Patriots, or I'm sorry, God, Sons of Liberty to Guns of the Patriots?
Sure. Well, especially when there's a prequel in between them.
Right,
as
exactly.
far as development, so they exclusively strengthened parts of the story and characters. Yeah, I totally agree. And unfortunately, in 15 years' time, when we get to Metal Gear Solid 4, with how many games we have in between now and then. But you're right. I mean, I would say 4 is probably where I'm the least confident in my memory of the story. I remember the beats of it, because it's probably the one I've played the longest ago out of the console games.
Okay.
Because I definitely liked playing the NES ones and stuff, probably in the last 5 years. But I probably played Metal Gear Solid 4 maybe 2 or 3 years after it came out.
Okay.
And then I played Metal Gear Solid 5 when it came out.
Okay.
So I would probably say my least confident in those beats. But I do remember playing and just being like, am I dumb? Or am I misremembering? Because I wasn't a big lore nerd. But the whole point of Metal Gear Solid 4 is they make a strong choice to be like, and we're wrapping it up. We are making decisions, and they are final, because we are done here, is what they tried to sort of establish with everything. And some of it fucking hit amazingly, and some of it I was just like, wait, what? Was that really true? You know what I mean?
That's
so
very fair. Yeah, you make a good point, because I'm sure the added strain of trying to wrap up a series is incredibly expansive, I guess, is the best way to describe it, as the Metal Gear series. Wrapping it up is not going to be easy, and especially if you're trying to do it well, I guess we can't say all of a sudden, because he teased wrapping it up for a while, but know, I'm sure there's a reason why it took that long too, because how can you wrap up a series after creating so many new lines on a spider web and not closing those up? You know what I mean? I think there was never going to be a way to satisfy every player.
Agreed.
Or maybe any player. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is, 4 is a very divisive game, I would say, overall. I mean, some people love it. I do think it's a pretty good wrap up considering it's hard to end a story. Like usually a show's really good if it ends well or if it ends at all.
Yeah.
Same with a good book, same with a good movie. It's interesting. And I think so. You bringing that up, while I agree with your thought process, how you got there, the difference is the same man directed and made those games, which is why Portable Ops has that little asterisk next to it to be like, well, this can't inform any characters moving forward. It can, but if it doesn't, then it can't. And you just sort of let that happen. But I will say, over the years, the general fandom of Metal Gear are with you. Hey, this game's canon. Like, this game's pretty solid. Yeah, maybe we misremembered a plot point because that's not what that guy said in Metal Gear Solid 5. Or that building in Ground Zeroes doesn't look like it's supposed to. It's in the wrong country. Stuff like that. The main reason why it still really gets that is because of the Portable Ops plus of it.
Yeah.
Plus is straight up not canon. Like, and the problem is there's not enough changes to Portable Ops Plus to be like, why wouldn't you just call that canon, since no one's going to care about some of the characters you meet or something that ties to the other game you were making, Metal Gear Acid and Acid 2. I think that's the big difference. But I would say you're not in the minority by thinking, hey, I played through this game. Feels pretty canon to me. That was the intent. And it sort of got the seal of approval from Kojima. He just also added the Kojima part of it of just like, but that's not going to mean that I can not change what I want in my future games.
You won't hold me down.
Mean? Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the big piece. And I'm so happy that Chris was also allowed to give us his thoughts on that beautiful conversation we were just having. Tori, I was just like, holy shit, we didn't really get Chris's like take on this. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Chime in before.
I'm sorry. I've just been arriving at conclusions as I let them stumble out of my mouth. So please, Chris.
No, I am having a blast listening to y'all. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Where should I start? Yeah, I guess like some of the side characters in this game do feel a little strange in their nichiness,
Sure.
I'm sure we'll talk more, especially when we get into villains, because I feel like that illustrates my point a lot better. But that's certainly how I felt about Venus. Like, her name is Venus, and she's a female soldier. Like, okay, all right, come on, get it.
It might as well have been Vixen.
Yeah. And I mean, Taliko barely stands out to me at all, really, to be honest with you.
I put him in there just in case. Someone might be like, what about them? They're in the game.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's strange to me how like some of the side characters though do not stand out as strong as like Jonathan does, because he is a character that I'm pretty attached to by the point in the game I lose him. But I don't know. I really don't have many thoughts on the side characters. I think there's a lot of them, especially if you include like the recruitable soldiers and things like that. Yeah,
Killfish and Giraffe and Camel and Frog. All those guys.
Barking Octopus.
What was it? There was a
Mega Shark I talked about in one of the previous episodes, I think. Big Mouth Shark or something like that. I'm like, what the fuck are these code names?
Some ridiculous one that either my brother Chase or Alex sent. It was just an insane combination. Like at least 3 names.
Killfish was a good one too. I saw later. Killfish. I'm like, okay.
I wish I could remember it.
Chris, as far as canonicity outside of your little preamble there, where's your headcanon? Does your headcanon include this game?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
It's good. It deserves to be there.
All right.
It helps me color in my overall experience and of Metal Gear as a series, and that's why it's in my headcanon.
And I like to agree. And I think we all know
Nice.
where Tori stands on this.
Yeah, you better.
With that said, though, guys, I think this wraps up another episode of Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance Portable Ops. Is there anything else you guys want to chime in before we do our little outro?
No.
Hashtag, where's Jonathan? That's how I feel about that.
Oh, no. I had just forgotten about it.
Sorry. So yeah, guys. So this wraps up another episode of Metal Gear Monday's Revengeance Portable Ops Edition. Again, everybody that's been listening, we absolutely appreciate it. If you want to give us any rating or reviewing on wherever you guys download or listen to this, it would be incredibly helpful. I will also make it a point, if you are listening to us on YouTube, comment, give it a like, and if you guys would consider subscribing, we'd absolutely appreciate it, because maybe it will give us a little bit of a drive to add some YouTube content out there as well. But we see you. We love you, YouTube people. Hi, YouTube. We will give you guys credit. We are here for you. Patreon, you can hit us up at Metal Gear Mondays on Patreon. Again, we absolutely adore our patrons. You guys are incredibly helpful and probably the reason why the show is still going after all the changes that have gone on in the last year or so. You want to hit up merch, go to bit.ly/MGM store. You can catch us on Metal Gear Mondays when it comes to all of the social medias outside of Twitter, of course, because of the character limit, Metal Gear Monday. You can go to MetalGearMondays.com and you can check out past and current hosts and awesome stuff there. Outside of that, Chris, where can people find you on the internet?
Y'all can't find me on the internet.
Got it.
You can find me standing in the bread line somewhere. But really, I guess you could find me on the Discord or in the bio section of MetalGearMondays.com.
What about you, Tori, when it comes to the interwebs?
Hey, you can find me crying in a corner about how much I love Jonathan. Other than that, you could just type Young Neil, YNGNEIL, into the old... well, you guys know the one, the search bar that's really popular, and it owns everything. It owns our lives now. Yeah, you could just pop that into the search bar, and I'm sure something will come up.
All right. You can find me at Warminix on all of the social medias. If you are into gamer tags, I'm Untaggable Gamer. And outside of that, I think it's time to let it rip, Jack.